Anyway, no more talking about Snodgrass Landing. No more talking about Snodgrass Landing. Let us learn from Nick. Nick, the wonderful teacher. Okay, Raven, have a good night. Nick is a wonderful teacher, and I wish to learn about America's
There's my station, Chad.
Fuck.
Snodgrass Landing. My station is called Snodgrass Landing.
You deserve that, Seb. No, I'm sure he won't, Datanachi. Okay, chat. Enough joking around. Let us get educated.
During World War II, submarines accounted for...
Hello YouTube, come by to twitch.tv/emberparadox and join Snodgrass Landing.
Enough. We are here to get educated. Let us get educated.
During World War II, submarines accounted for approximately 2% of the United States naval fleet. Despite that, they are credited with sinking 50% of all enemies, totaling over 7 million tons.
Damn!
And this is how. Today we're talking about Dudley Morton, aka Mushmouth, most commonly referred to as Mush Morton. Ladies and gentlemen, when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, they crippled the United States Navy. The only thing that really escaped unscathed was the American carrier fleet and the American submarine fleet. The carriers avoided destruction because they were conveniently not at Pearl Harbor that day, and the submarine fleet escaped because they were deemed a low priority target. And that is because at this point in time,
that was a mistake. Submarines are a low priority target. Proceeds to sink 50% of the enemy's naval fleet. You done fucked up.
submarines were deemed almost exclusively a defensive weapon. But as the old adage goes, necessity is the mother of invention. America would forge new battle tactics, and a new breed of hyper-aggressive submarine commander and crew would be born. Incredible, legendary warriors like Eugene Lucky Flucky and his crew of the USS Barb, Lawson Red Ramage and the crew of the USS Parch, and Dick O'Kane, the crew of the USS Tang, would all step forward and become heroes. But they were following the footsteps of the prototype, America's first hyper-aggressive submarine skipper, Mush Morton. A man that was originally deemed too timid and conservative to be an effective submarine commander, that was given a second shot at command for the sole reason that his commanding officer, and I quote, liked the way he shook hands.
Come on, bring it in there. Tuck that.
I'm in there, dog. I'm in there, dog.
You tucking it in there? But you tuck that.
And with that second chance, he would take a defensive weapon and turn it into one of the great...
Well, Leo, it started to, but then he said his commanding officer wanted to give him another chance because of the way he shook hands. So it started to sound familiar, but then I was like, and I was going to say something, but then Nick said that line. I went, oh, okay, maybe he did start off perhaps a bit timid. We'll find out. Maybe, who knows? Maybe it's the same case as the other submarine commander that they called him too timid, but only because he had shitty ordnance that kept missing, and so they deemed him as being too timid. That's initially where I was going for, but let's see.
And with that second chance, he would take a defensive weapon and turn it into one of the greatest offensive weapons in history, changing warfare forever. And we're going to get into it right after a word from our sponsor.
Haha.
Delete me.
Why do you have an ACOG on a lever action?
Nick, there's rabbits.
Wait. Fucking wait. Hold up. This is Hannah. With a lever action and an ACOG, dressed like a it dressed like Little House on the Prairie. We are giving her as much screen time as possible.
We're going to get into it right after a word from our sponsor.
Delete me.
Why do you have an ACOG on a lever action?
Nick, there's rabbits and deer in my garden.
All right, that explains the ACOG. Why does it have a suppressor?
The boys are napping.
I mean, I guess that makes sense. This video is brought to you by Delete Me. All right, here's the deal. Super simple, straightforward business model. You give them money.
I know.
Turn around and
Oh,
make
I
sure
saw
the data
Bebel.
brokers on the internet aren't selling your personal information. What does that even mean? Okay, here's the entire internet and every free service on the planet inside of a nutshell. Okay, there's a saying, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. What that means is pretty much anything on the internet that you use, that's a service, whether that be Google, Facebook, Instagram,
She is
Snapchat,
adorable,
all
Colonel.
of it, okay? It's all an app. So one of two things is happening. They're either going to feed you ads, and that's how that company makes money since their service is free, or they're going to collect your personal information, then turn around and sell it to data brokers on the internet, and then they're going to turn around and sell it to whoever buys it, and next thing you know, you're getting 17,000 robocalls every single day. And that's where Delete Me comes in. They will look through all the major data brokers and find the ones that are selling your personal information and submit opt-out requests on your behalf, and then they are legally obligated to comply.
I imagine, and I bet it does, probably applies to texts as well. Because I've gotten at least 2 or 3 text messages in the last day or two claiming that I have a Purelator package waiting, that I need to reach out to them right away because of a postal code error. Translation is it's a scam. I wonder if this would fix that.
And then they'll continue to monitor these data brokers, and if they get your information again, Delete Me will submit an opt-out request again. Basically, you're paying Delete Me to get rid of all the downsides of all of the free stuff on the internet, which I think is absolutely worth it. If you want to check them out, I'll have a link and a discount code down below. Let's get back to the video. Our story begins in 1907 in Kentucky when a young Dudley Morton is born. He also had a brother. His dad worked for the coal company and had to travel a ton for work, and his mother suffered from a chronic illness that had her hospitalized fairly frequently. As Dudley and his brother grew up and became more energetic, more rambunctious, and more rebellious, his mother being sick and his dad being gone for work all the time, they simply could not manage to keep these boys under control, and they were forced to send them off to Florida to live with their wealthy aunt.
Looked at my kingdom, I was finally there. Sat on my throne as the Prince of Bel-Air.
While attending high school in Miami, Dudley was kind of like the archetype of the all-American kid. He was handsome, he was good looking, he was super popular, he played football, he was a standout wrestler, he was just the guy. After graduating high school, because the wealthy aunt and uncle were connected, they were able to secure Dudley a spot at Annapolis, the United States Naval Academy. While there, his classmates would give him his nickname, Mushmouth, because they said it always sounded like he was talking with a mouthful of mush, and he had a famous party trick where he could supposedly fit 5 golf balls into his mouth and then recite Shakespeare. Also,
I hate to say it, but these days, what used to be called a mush mouth is probably more closer to when I tell someone to kindly take the dick out of their mouth when they're talking. I think he probably talked like that. These days, I usually just yell at the person on screen, and tell them, take the dick out of your mouth if you're gonna talk.
While attending Annapolis, he would have his first run-in with what appears to be the main storyline, because as he continued to be a standout wrestler at Annapolis, he actually almost made the 1932 Olympic team, but in the selection finals, he was beat out by a man that he had previously beaten 32 times in a row. The main storyline shall not be interrupted, apparently. From there, he goes on to graduate Annapolis in 1930 at the age of 23 and is commissioned as an ensign. After his commission, he gets stationed over on the West Coast on the USS Saratoga, which is an American aircraft carrier, and while he's on the West Coast, he starts attending all these Hollywood parties, rubbing elbows with all the rich and famous people, has the time of his life. A couple of years after that, in 1932, he gets stationed on a heavy cruiser, the USS Chicago, and then a year and a half after that, in 1933, he volunteers to go to submarine school. While at submarine school, he kind of develops a reputation for not being the guy that does everything by the book. He doesn't really care for strict regulations, and he doesn't care about the dog and pony show that is the United States military. One day, the cadre at the submarine school decides that they are going to go through and they are going to search the officers' quarters, including Mush Morton's. He's kind of understandably pissed by this. Like, this isn't basic training. He's not some 18-year-old kid trying to hide contraband. He's a 25-year-old man that graduated from the United States Naval Academy. Why are we digging through my room like I'm a child? So he decides, fuck this. I'm gonna get me and all my other officer buddies. We're just gonna go rent a house in town, and we're just gonna have a party house and do whatever the fuck we want all the time, and then we'll show up for school in the morning. His house ends up getting referred to as Stud Manor, and it is known for being a party pretty much 24/7.
How fucking fitting that they showed Animal House. How fitting, because remind me, when was Animal House supposed to take place? I feel like Animal House itself came out in what? Did Animal House come out in the 70s? I think I want to say Animal House came out in the 70s, but when was the movie supposed to take place? Wasn't it like the 40s or 50s? I think. I can't remember honestly. It's been a long time since I saw Animal House. But I mean, it felt like, was it the 60s? Okay, so it took place in the 60s.
Better Animal House than Animal Farm.
I don't know, Benj. I think it might depend on who you ask. Well, shadows, probably a lot. I mean, it was literally a drunk house, so early Vietnam era? Okay.
Pretty much 24/7. Despite that, somehow Mush Morton and all of his buddies living in this house had their grades actually start improving, and when he was asked how that was possible, he said it was simple. They had a strict policy. There was no women and no booze from midnight on Wednesday until after exams on Friday, and the rest of the time was just one huge party.
My advice to you
Nice.
is to start drinking heavily. You better listen to him, Flounder. He's in pre-med.
So he graduates from submarine school, ends up getting stationed on an S-37 submarine over in Manila. While he's over there, he ends up meeting an art student that's on vacation from Chicago. They end up getting married. Her name is Harriet Nelson. Then in 1939, at the age of 32, Mush Morton becomes the executive officer of the USS Fairfax, an old World War I era submarine. If you don't know, executive officer is the second in command.
Destroyer, which Nick corrected. I was kind of blocking where he put in the USS Fairfax. Right down here, he actually puts in destroyer. Good when Nick accidentally said submarine.
An old World War I era submarine. If you don't know, executive officer is the second in command. In addition to that, in the same year, 1939, Mush Morton and Harriet have their first kid, Douglas. Then in 1940, Mush Morton is given command of a submarine, the USS R5. It's this little tiny old sub from like 1918. Shortly after that, in 1941, Mush and Harriet would have their second child, their first daughter, Edwina. Then on December 7th, 1941, the Japanese attack Pearl Harbor, and America is now at war with Imperial Japan and Nazi Germany. Shortly after that, Mush Morton and the USS R5 get their first chance to engage the enemy. They're over in the Atlantic and they spot a German U-boat that has been devastating American supply lines. Now, the important context here is this is a new era German U-boat. This is one of the most sophisticated submarines on the planet, and the USS R5 under the command of Mush Morton is a tiny, shitty little submarine from 1918 that has almost no combat value, but they're being put into combat anyways, because after the attack on Pearl Harbor, the submarines are all America has.
It's not the size, mate. It's how you use it.
But Mush Morton's gonna do the best he can with what he's got, so he sneaks up on the German U-boat, gets within 4,000 yards, fires 4 torpedoes, all 4 of them are misses, and he orders the sub to dive underwater to try to escape this German U-boat because there's no way it's gonna be able to engage in direct combat. Later, Mush Morton would heavily be criticized for not trying to chase down that German U-boat and sink it, but again, he's in the USS R5, he's completely outmatched and outgunned. Why?
And leave us not forget, they still hadn't fixed the torpedoes. This was back when the torpedo fuses were still dog shit, and commanders were missing more than hitting because of these broke-ass torpedoes. So, yeah, he fired those 4 shots. The fuses didn't, I don't know if he flat out missed them or they simply didn't engage. Well, I don't remember. I think it was the Mark II. If I'm remembering correctly, the torpedo itself was the Mark II. Mark 14? Was it the Mark 14? Okay, am I getting my Marks wrong? Okay, Mark 14. Excuse me. Mark 14. So the Mark 14 torpedo, which had issues, and... Okay, it comes... David, when it comes to any submarine story, I kind of figured it...
Hey, listen!
Navi, fuck off! I figured that the Mark 14 torpedoes it's a submarine video. I kind of assumed they'd come into play on this.
sink it, but again, he's in the USS R5. He's completely outmatched and outgunned. Why would you chase down your own ass whooping? So Mush thinks he made the right decision, but a lot of the other officers are thinking maybe he's too timid, he's too conservative, maybe he's even a coward. Regardless of what those other officers think, his chain of command is like, okay, fine.
And he took that personally.
So, if you want a modern sub, we're going to give you a promotion to lieutenant commander, and then we're going to send you back off to school so you can study war tactics and actually learn how to engage the enemy. So that's exactly what he does. While he's at this school learning to be the commander of a modern sub, he hates pretty much everything they teach. They're essentially teaching these guys to use submarines as a
thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for the dono. Thank you very much. And it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I really appreciate it. Whomever you are, because I'm guessing your name is not Go Check Email. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it.
defensive scout, right? They just want the submarine to go out there and kind of like spy on people, and if they get an opportunity to fire a torpedo where it's like guaranteed 100% safe, they can go ahead and fire a torpedo and then sink back down and get away. But Mush Morton is like, no, let's go take the fight to the enemy. Let's go destroy supply lines. Let's do guerrilla warfare underwater. But he also knows that nobody's going to listen to him because he's, you know, too timid and too cowardly, and that's a crazy idea, and he's throwing the entire doctrine upside down. So he just kind of bites his tongue, goes on, graduates the school. From here, he's hoping to get put in command of a new Gato or Baleo class submarine, which are the best submarines America has at the time. That's not what he gets. He gets put in charge of the USS Dolphin, which is an old rust bucket that's barely seaworthy at this point in time. It's lost its ability to shoot torpedoes. All he has for weapons is a couple of 5-inch guns on the deck, and he's basically just supposed to go out in the ocean and shoot at enemy airplanes. It's essentially a waste of time, but the United States government is trying to use every single tool they have, but Mush Morton is pissed. This ship is basically a death trap. He knows that, and he tries to tell his chain of command he doesn't want it. And his chain of command gets super pissed at him. His direct commanding officer ends up saying, you know, with your record of cowardice, and now you're saying that this ship isn't good enough for you, I think you're being a coward again. So he fills in the paperwork to have him yanked out of submarines entirely and tries to have him reassigned to a surface ship. Obviously, Mush Morton pushes back against this, and it goes all the way up to Admiral Babe Brown, the top dude in charge of him. And he goes in, has a meeting with him, and Babe Brown decides to give him a second chance at being a submarine officer. He's not going to be a commander right away, but he's going to continue being an officer on submarines. And his reasoning was, and I quote, I liked the way he shook hands.
Slap hands.
God.
Maintain a nice firm grip on the hips and pose. It's just a nice feeling between you and your teammate.
And with that handshake, Mush Morton is assigned to a new Gato class submarine, the USS Wahoo. So he reports to his new ship.
I wish I had the sound click for this, but oh God, that probably sounded like absolute crap through the VC right there. I was trying to do the Yahoo commercial thing. I'm guessing it probably did not come through very well.
The USS Wahoo is under the command of Commander Kennedy and the executive officer Dick O'Kane. Mush and O'Kane immediately hit it off and become friends, and it doesn't take long for Mush to realize that not many of the other officers really care for Commander Kennedy. The guy had previously been a commander of a surface ship, didn't know a whole lot about submarines, whereas Dick O'Kane had been in submarines for years and years and years, and Commander Kennedy refused to listen to anything he had to say. Commander Kennedy was overly cautious to the point that he was just doing dumb shit aboard the USS Wahoo that made life miserable for the entire crew. Okay, I need you to understand this is a diesel-powered submarine. Okay, so it's got diesel generators. Those diesel generators charge a bunch of battery banks, and batteries require water. So having a lot of fresh water on a submarine was always a huge issue until this new Gato class, because the commander Cheng Li was placed in charge of getting shit done for the United States Navy, found out that they had developed these new distillers and had these distillers put in all the new Gato class submarines so they can make as much fresh water as they need.
Yep, and we get the Cheng Li cameo. I love it when we get the cameos. I love it. But did you notice the irony? They called Morton a coward. Yet the sub that they put him on, the commanding officer really did act like a coward. Whereas Morton was like, let's fucking go. but his commanding officer was a coward. It's like, this seems like some kind of an attempt at a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, did they put him on this boat? No. David, don't misunderstand. I'm not talking about Morton. Morton got labeled incorrectly as a coward, but they assigned him to a sub with a commander that actually was a coward, and it feels like the Navy command was basically trying to pull some kind of self-fulfilling prophecy bullshit with this. So how long before he takes over?
Needed. Okay, this was huge. This meant that the Gato-class submarines were always going to have fresh water for the batteries, and on top of that, they were going to be able to make more, so the crew would actually be able to have showers and wash laundry and do all the shit that would make life not as miserable while you're sitting under the water inside of a metal tin can with a bunch of other dudes sweating your ass off. Commander Kennedy, though, is like, well, those distillers use power and power uses fuel, so I don't really trust it. We're just not going to use the distillers, meaning we're not going to do laundry and we're not going to have fucking showers on this ship, even though the government just spent presumably millions of dollars getting us those capabilities to make life not as shitty aboard the ship. But Commander Kennedy's just like,
kidding me right now?
I don't trust it. The only fresh water we're going to have to do that shit with is we're going to take fucking buckets and stick them under the air conditioner condensers and catch all the dripping condensation, and that's going to be the fresh water that we're going to use.
Did this man have a side of stupid with his breakfast or something? Oh, are you fucking kidding me right now?
You are made of stupid.
This is fucking crazy. This is like stupidly crazy that someone would ever even think like this. That we're gonna use the condenser water from coming out of the air conditioning units. Like, the water coming out of those condensers is goddamn disgusting. Don't forget, this is water that is, this is basically condensation of air that has traveled through filters and is basically sedentary until it finally drips down out of the fucking air conditioner.
Than you thought that I thought I was once.
Mods! Yeet this man into a fucking torpedo tube and press the button. Yeet his ass into the sea, mods.
What? So the whole crew is obviously just pissed. It'd be like if your dad bought you a new car and then your mom told you to walk to school anyways. It's complete bullshit. On top of that, Dick O'Kane and all the other high-ranking officers can't stand the guy because he doesn't trust them at all. He literally has his bed put up on the bridge, so he's always there, and he makes it his policy that there has to be 2 officers on the bridge running the ship at all times, which runs all those officers absolutely ragged. Dick O'Kane and all the other officers are getting 4 hours of sleep a night, and that's if they don't run into any enemies. It's just a complete nightmare.
Okay. The fact that he ordered his fucking bed to be on the bridge, so he even slept on the bridge? That sounds like a mental illness. There is something fucking wrong with this man's head. No, Revan, no, not dedication. No fucking dedication here. Maybe he thought somehow he was the main character. I don't fucking know. But this is fucking insanity. I don't know if I would classify this as OCD. This doesn't feel like OCD. It's control freak. Yes, Alex, absolutely sounds like control freak issues. Which, that's something great for a naval commander because a control freak means they cannot adapt to stuff that goes out of their control. Because if you have a control freak and a micromanager, when shit goes sideways, they don't really have the ability to adapt to those drastically changing environments or situations and be able to compensate for it. So this is like all the fucking worst signs when it comes to what you want in a naval commander. It's the exact opposite of a fucking naval commander. I wouldn't call him a dictator, Laruk. I wouldn't go that far. But he is someone that I would not trust in command of a naval ship, because when shit goes sideways, I would not trust him to be able to get him and his crew and his boat out of the situation. He would fucking panic. He would panic and just say, full throttle, get us out of here, and that would be his only course of action. He wouldn't know it. He wouldn't think to do evasive maneuvers. He wouldn't think to do counterattacks. He wouldn't think tactics. He'd think just fucking run. Because his brain wouldn't be able to handle the unexpected. If it's not expected, his brain will just short circuit. Bad choice for a naval commander.
Regardless, they set sail, they get sent out to the Buka Strait, which is where a bunch of Japanese supply lines are going through, and they're supposed to disrupt the enemy. So they're on the Buka Strait near Bougainville, and they've been out there, they're just looking for Japanese ships, everything's kind of going according to plan, and finally, Mush Morton's had enough of this no taking showers bullshit. He sends the order to some of the guys, fire up the distillers, I'm gonna take a fucking shower. So he goes, he grabs his bright-ass red bathrobe and starts making his way towards the showers. Right as that happens, the alarm goes off. The USS Wahoo has spotted a Japanese convoy. So Mush Morton runs up to the deck. He's in his red bathrobe as shit's about to hit the fan. So he gets up to the bridge. Dick O'Kane and Commander Kennedy are up there as well. There's a rainstorm going on. There's lightning. You can't really see shit. The waters are rough, but there's an enemy convoy like 4,000 yards away, and they are in perfect position to set up an attack and potentially sink all three ships. Dick O'Kane wants to approach on the surface, being disguised by heavy rainfall and rough seas, and they have the right angle. But Commander Kennedy, wanting to be ultra conservative, is like, no, we're gonna dive now, and then we're gonna track him down using sonar, even though that there's, you know, rough seas and lightning and a bunch of other shit going on. That's just what he wants to do, and he's in charge, so that's what they do. The ship dives down, and within a matter of minutes, they've completely lost the Japanese convoy. And now Dick O'Kane is fucking pissed. He's been in submarines forever. He knows how to set up these attacks.
Again, this feels like they set Dick O'Kane up to fail by claiming, oh, you're too cowardly to command a boat, and sticking him as the second in command of a coward. It really feels like the Navy was doing a setup for failure, self-fulfilling prophecy bullshit. Like, Mush Morton. God, Dick O'Kane was the last thing they said. That's why it stuck in my head. Yeah, Morton. They were setting Morton up for failure on this, and how this man was allowed to maintain command, like, given the fact that they yoinked Mush Morton out of a sub because they claimed he was too conservative, yet this guy, who is even more fucking conservative, like to the nth fucking degree, how the hell was this man able to maintain command of a sub? You know, he's even more quote-unquote conservative and cowardly than they considered Mush Morton.
And now Dick O'Kane is fucking pissed. He's been in submarines forever. He knows how to set up these attacks. His commander does not know as much about submarines as him, and he absolutely refuses to listen. So he kind of goes, he confides in Mush Morton, and Mush Morton is like, dude, look, I completely agree. We need to take the fight to the enemy, get in their face, and basically do guerrilla warfare on the water. But in defense of Commander Kennedy, it's kind of sort of not really his fault, because this is exactly what they teach these guys in this submarine warfare school that I just got back from. They want them to be ultra conservative and do everything 100% safe. From this point, Dick O'Kane and Mush Morton kind of come to an agreement that they're going to document everything and try to get Commander Kennedy kicked off this ship so they can get a new commander that'll actually listen and actually get them in the fight. Like a week later.
Okay. So I'm still not going to say that this commander is a good commander. Yeah, it's what they taught him in school. But if he has no combat instincts, yeah, like, there's a difference between learning something in combat school and religiously adhering to it like it's the fucking Bible, and refusing to adapt, adjust, or improvise, or innovate. If you refuse to do any of that and stack that on top of your existing schooling, you're not a good commander. The good commanders take what they've learned in school, and not only do they implement it in the field, they also expound upon it. They evolve it to become more efficient, more effective, more lethal. And refusing to do that does not make for a good commander.
Later, December 7th, 1942, they come up on another Japanese convoy, and again, Commander Kennedy kind of gets panicked, doesn't want to approach on the surface, orders the ship to dive. They lose the target again. The next morning, they spot another convoy, 3 Japanese ships. Again, Kennedy gives the command to dive and goes underwater, but they're still gonna launch torpedoes at this convoy from underwater. Maybe it'll work out, but the problem is Commander Kennedy doesn't trust any of his other officers, even though they're more experienced than him. So he's trying to man the periscope, man the sonar, oversee all the targeting data, and be a one-man show. He just refuses to delegate and—
Wait! Aren't there enlisted that man the sonar and targeting data? I will freely admit, I am not overly familiar with how subs work. And it's not even like the other officers. I thought they actually had enlisted on the sonar, enlisted on the firing computer. Like, what the fuck? Like, dude, my brother in Christ, you need to delegate. You need to actually let your people do the job that they are trained to do. Because if you're not, why the fuck are they even here in harm's way? If you were not going to have them do their fucking job that they volunteered to do, that they trained to do, fucking let them be in the rears where they're safe and away from your stupid ass command.
Trust the dudes around him. So they've got the enemy in their crosshairs, essentially, and everybody's just kind of standing on the deck watching Commander Kennedy run around like a chicken with his head cut off, trying to do everything by himself, and they're like, he's gonna fuck it up again. He's gonna miss it. We're never gonna do anything in this war. We're just gonna sit here and watch this guy fuck up everything the entire time. But Commander Kennedy actually kind of pulls it off. He gets the targeting data on one of the freighters, fires 4 torpedoes, 3 of them hit the freighter, huge explosion, sets the whole thing on fire. At this point, everybody on the deck is shocked, like, holy shit, we actually fucking did something. At this point, Dick O'Kane is like, okay, fucking grab the next ship. There's 3 of them. Let's fire at the next one. And Commander Kennedy's like, no, dive deeper. And then they just kind of sit there, let the destroyer come, drop depth charges, trying to take them out. Now the whole submarine's getting fucking rocked.
Oh,
they're not fighting back. And it's just like, okay, well, at least he did something, I guess. They survived the depth charges from the destroyer. Dick O'Kane and Mush Morton are like, okay, cool, let's fucking set up another run and go sink another one of the ships, and then maybe we can take out this entire convoy. And he's like, nope, that's too risky, let's fucking leave. So they dip out. A couple days later, they come up on another Japanese ship. Commander Kennedy opts.
What did I say? The minute it gets too tough, what is he gonna do? Engines to full, get us the fuck out of here. What did I say?
Leave. So they dip out. A couple days later, they come up on another Japanese ship. Commander Kennedy opts to dive and sneak up to it underwater. Whatever, I guess. So they sneak up on this ship. They get right on top of it. They're ready to fire torpedoes and sink this fucking thing. And Commander Kennedy's like, nope, we're not going to fire torpedoes. Everybody's completely shocked. Like, it's just in the crosshairs. All he has to do is say fire, torpedoes away, and they're going to sink this fucking ship. And he's like, no, technically we're in another submarine's AO, so I don't want to, like, take one of their kills, which is completely fucking ridiculous.
The fuck? Are you fucking kidding me? Motherfucker, you are at war. That is an enemy. This isn't about, oh, I don't want to take another boat's kill. You drop the enemy like it's fucking hot. And yeah, Leo, so I imagine that they probably do have AOs. But motherfucker, these are the bad guys. You are literally at fucking war. Your entire job is to destroy the motherfucking enemy. That is your entire job. We are not here to play footsie. Yeah, we are not here to suck off another boat's commander. Do your fucking job. Honestly, at this point, I'm even talks about mutiny. I'm surprised the words treason have not
What you just
left their
said
mouths.
Is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point
Exactly,
in your
Ryan.
rambling,
Exactly.
incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Seriously, I'm surprised the word treason has not come up yet. And Demon, I don't know. I don't think that the commander has done anything at this point that would warrant relieving him of command. At least not that I can think of. Other than being a coward and an idiot, there doesn't seem to be anything that would legitimately allow the XO to relieve him of command. But it would not surprise me if there were talks of mutiny. Well, Kaibo, at war, you have the enemy in sight and you don't take the shot. Now, is it actually treasonous, Kaibo? No, I'm not saying it's actually treasonous, what he's doing. What I'm saying is I'm surprised that treason is not on the lips of his crew. I'm not claiming that this commander is treasonous. That is not what I'm claiming. I'm saying I'm surprised the crew is not, especially when he's right up on a target. They're bang on. They can take the shot, and he's going now. We're in, coming up the excuse of we're in another sub's AO. I'm surprised that, given that this is World War II, that there hasn't been talks amongst the crew of treason. That is what I'm saying. Not that he has actually committed it, but that they would say it. I mean, treason, mutiny, dereliction of duty. Like, if you're looking for official reasons, dereliction of duty, sure. I'm not talking about, I'm not talking about, again, I'm talking about the psychological effect on the crew. This is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about doctrine. I'm not talking about, how he could be relieved of command. I'm talking about the psychological effect on the crew. They might look at, they might be talking about mutiny, or they might be thinking, is this guy a traitor to America? Is he secretly standing for the Japanese or for the Germans? That's what I'm talking about. Not that he actually is, but with the thought process in the crew's mind at this point.
Ridiculous.
Sir, we won't tell anybody. What difference does it make? We have a perfect shot. Just let us take it.
At this point, Dick O'Kane is fucking furious, and Mush Morton can tell that Dick O'Kane is actually about to go punch the skipper, have mutiny, and try to take over the ship. And Mush Morton just kind of gives him the signal, just fucking calm down. We'll take care of this. I got it. So Dick O'Kane chills for a minute, and they just keep going forward. From here, they go back, they make port, they do the whole mission debrief, the whole 9 yards. Commander Kennedy goes into his boss and is like, things went good. We went out, we sunk a ship. It was a good war patrol, huge success, great job. Then he leaves, and then Dick O'Kane and Mush Morton go into his office, and they're like, how do you guys think it went? They're like, yeah, we sunk a ship. We could have sank fucking 10 ships. When asked directly by the Admiral what he thought of Commander Kennedy, Mush Morton responded, and I quote, this man is a yellow-bellied son of a bitch and should be relieved of command. The entire
based. That is a based officer right fucking there. And yeah, Atanashi, that's the fear. That is the fear.
Entire room goes silent. Commander Kennedy gets relieved of command, and now Mush Morton is the commander of the USS Wahoo at 34 years old. Also, while this is going on,
Atanashi, we stand corrected. Fuck yes, let's fucking go.
Mush, Morton, and the rest of the crew are catching up on all the news that's been going on while they've been off on this war patrol, and they're finding out about all the atrocities the Japanese are committing in the Philippines, Manila, all over the Pacific theater, how they're killing Americans, how they're torturing innocent civilians, and a hatred for the Japanese grows inside of all of them, especially Mush Morton. And that's partly because he was stationed in Manila for a while. He loved that city, he loved the people there, and now they're under Japanese control and they're being tortured. In addition to that, they received word that Dick O'Kane's former submarine, the USS Argonaut, had been sunk with all 110 men on board. And now he wants revenge too. And under Mush Morton, he's got...
Oh, box. Shit just got real. Oh, yeah. Shit on fucked up. It's time to play.
Gonna get it. So Mush Morton immediately gets to work getting his crew and the submarine ready for battle. He goes in, has the commander's bed taken off the deck, clears up way more room on deck for everything else that actually needs to fucking be there. He takes the captain's mast book, that little book that the previous Commander Kennedy was writing down every little transgression a sailor did so he could punish them later and didn't forget, throws that shit in the trash, has pin-up posters of hot women put all over the submarine, and has a placard put inside of each bay that says, "Shoot the sons of bitches." He tells his entire crew, "You're not calling me Commander Morton, you're calling me Mush or Dudley. We're leaving rank at the dock." As they're getting ready to set sail, Mush addresses the entire crew. He gives a speech and he basically tells them, look, every trail of smoke, every hit on the sonar, we are going to investigate, and if it is a Japanese ship, we are going to engage and destroy them. This is going to be like no other submarine run that has ever been done, and it's going to be dangerous, and for that reason, I do not want to take anybody that's not a volunteer with me. I've given the yeoman authorization to have you move to a different ship if you want. You have 30 minutes to go report to him. I will have you transferred off my vessel. Nobody's going to judge you for it, but this is your time to get off my ship if you're not a volunteer.
I will help you bear this burden.
You have my sword.
And my axe.
Nobody leaves. Everybody's fucking pumped. It's game time. January 16th, 1943, the USS Wahoo departs from Australia on its third war patrol and the first war patrol under Mush Morton. As soon as they get underway, Mush Morton continues to change absolutely everything. He does something that is unprecedented. He informs Dick O'Kane, his XO, that he is going to be the one manning the periscope. Okay, that doesn't seem like a big deal. It's a huge deal. Nobody fucking does that. The periscope belongs to the captain of the ship. Okay, nobody touches it except for him. He's the guy looking through the periscope. He's the guy making the decisions. But Mush Morton has a different idea. He wants to be the one sitting back, taking in all of the information. He wants somebody manning the periscope, reporting back to him. He wants the sonar guys reporting back to him.
You touch our boats, and you are going to frickin' find out the hard what happens.
Because when you touch our boats, we touch back. Third.
He wants the targeting guys reporting back to him, getting all the information and making the decision. He is essentially going to be the computer, not the sensing objects. This is what is going to allow Mush Morton to focus on the overall big picture of the complete battlefield and not get tunnel vision inside the tiny viewpoint of the periscope. And again, it still kind of seems like, okay, that's not that big of a deal, but to all the officers involved, this shows an unprecedented, never before seen amount of trust that Mush Morton is putting in.
You send one of ours to the hospital, we send one of yours to the morgue. That's the Chicago way.
He learned from the best, it seems. And again, this is what I was talking about earlier. You take what you learned in the school, in combat school, you take that as a tool, and you expound upon it. You adapt it. You evolve it to become better, stronger, deadlier. That is exactly what Mush Morton is doing. He's taking what he learned in school and he's evolving it to become a more effective fighting unit. That is what a good commander does.
in the officers beneath him, and it is a level of the ability to delegate
No, we just
that
watched it
nobody
the
has
other
ever
day.
seen before. Now, the mission that the USS Wahoo's been sent on is a reconnaissance mission. You got to realize the chain of command probably didn't want to give Mush Morton some big, dangerous mission on his first go. They're going to give him something easy. Go do some recon, you know, establish yourself as a leader, get some experience under your belt, and then we'll send you out to go do some dangerous stuff. But as Mush Morton said, if we see an enemy, we're going to sink an enemy. He's out to set a tone, not to spy on people. So he is sent out to a place called Weiwak Harbor off.
I'm just going to remind you. I will just remind you of something, chat. Cab Scouts do recon. That is their job, is to do recon. What does Nick like to say about the Cab Scouts? Doing recon? And yes, I know Cab Scouts were not a thing at this time. I'm just saying the parallels there, you know?
The coast of New Guinea. This area is deep inside of Japanese-held territory. They have airstrips, harbors, supply lines. It is a Japanese hub in the Pacific at this point in time, and because of that, they haven't been able to get a lot of aerial reconnaissance or any reconnaissance at all, so they don't even have a good layout of the geography, and that's what the USS Wahoo is supposed to be doing. On their way there, a member of the crew comes up to, you know, the XO and the commanding officer, Mush Morton, and is like, "Sir, this is going to sound dumb, but I think I have something that might help us." This crew member, while they were in Australia on leave, had went out and purchased a children's geography book, like an atlas, and he was going to take it back home and give it to his kids as a souvenir. And inside of this atlas, there was pretty detailed maps of Weiwak Harbor. And they were actually like significantly better, more detailed, and showed islands that the US military maps didn't even have on them. So now Mush Morton finds a guy in his crew that was an amateur photographer that has some experience with this type of stuff and gets him to be able to project the two maps over each other and get them to scale, and recreates a new, more detailed, more accurate map of Weiwak Harbor. And just like that, mission accomplished. That was the whole objective that they were being sent out to go do, and they're already done. Side quest, let's go fuck shit up. January 24th, 1943, the USS Wahoo sails straight into Weiwak Harbor, gets within 30 miles of a Japanese airstrip, on the surface traveling 20 knots. They're not even submerged. Now, to the crew, this seems crazy. Like, okay, we had Commander Kennedy that was way too conservative, and now this guy's a complete 180 and he's being a little bit reckless. But Mush Morton realizes that the water here is so shallow, they're only going to be able to dive to 90 feet. So even if they were submerged and an aircraft flies over, they're still going to be able to see the submarine under the water. So there's no
more
point
options
in
while
traveling at
surface.
3 knots when you could be traveling at 20 knots if you're visible either way. So if you can't be sneaky, you might as well be fast. So they're hauling ass on the surface through Weiwak Harbor, and they come up on a Japanese destroyer. It's like 4,000 yards away. They look at Commander Mush Morton and is like, "Sir, you want us to shoot some torpedoes at?" And he's like, "Absolutely, but let's get right on top of it first." They look at him like he's absolutely crazy, and they're like, "What? They're Japanese. They're never going to expect an American submarine to be inside their own harbor this close to take a shot." To which his crew responds, "Yeah, I wouldn't expect us to do that either." So they sneak up within 1,700 yards, at which point Dick O'Kane is looking at Mush Morton like, "Bro, are we going to fucking take this shot or not? It's a bullseye at this point." And Mush Morton says his new catchphrase, "Anytime, Dick." They fire 3 torpedoes, 3 hits, break the back of the Japanese destroyer, sink it instantly. Mush Morton then immediately orders a dive. They dive down to 90 feet, slip out of enemy-held territory. 12 hours later, they resurface. Morton cracks open the massive store of booze that he had loaded onto the ship, and they have a party. Then 2 days later, on January 26th, they see smoke on the horizon. Better go investigate what's going on there. So they chase them down. They see a Japanese ship. They dive to periscope depth. They start maneuvering into position, and it's actually 3 Japanese ships in a convoy. It's 2 Japanese freighters and a large transport called the Boyu Maru with no escort. This is a perfect target. Dick O'Kane gets lined up on the first freighter. Mush Morton hits him with the anytime Dick. They fire 2 torpedoes, immediately pivot, fire 2 more torpedoes at the other freighter. The first freighter gets hit with both torpedoes, starts sinking immediately. The second freighter gets hit with 1 torpedo. The other torpedo misses. Now, with the second freighter only hit with 1 torpedo, it's not enough to actually sink this ship, but it slows it down. But the freighter does something unexpected. It turns directly towards the USS Wahoo. It's going to try to ram the sub and cut it in half. Mush Morton doesn't panic. He just grins and says, and I quote, "Shoot that son of a bitch down the throat." Okay, this is unprecedented because a down the throat shot is when you're shooting straight on at a ship, okay? The ships are arched in the water like this. You have to hit a dead ass bullseye because if you don't hit it right at the front, it's going to glance off the side and the torpedo's not going to explode and hurt.
Which shows the level of confidence that he had in his crew. He did not hesitate to give the order to ram the fucking torpedo right down this ship's fucking throat. That is I'd say he did have another choice. He could have gunned it and they probably could have gotten out of the way. It would have exposed their flank, but I think he probably did have another option. But for Mush Morton, there was only one option, violence. And Mush Morton chose violence, and it is gang fucking on.
The ship. So this is a low probability maneuver, but this is Mush Morton and Dick O'Kane. As the USS Wahoo's maneuvering to line up this perfect shot, one of the crew members accidentally fires one of the torpedoes prematurely. The Boyu Maru, not the freighter, the transport, sees this coming towards it and veers out of the way for fear that it's coming for it instead. And this exposes the Boyu Maru's entire broadside, at which point Mush Morton and Dick O'Kane are like, fire 2 more right at the broadside of that big ass transport. Fire 2 torpedoes, 2 hits, cripples the Boyu Maru. It's going down now too. Problem, we still got this slow ass freighter coming to cut us in half. So Wahoo lines up this shot again, fires 2 torpedoes at this freighter right down the throat. One of the torpedoes detonates early, and the other torpedo is a direct hit but doesn't fucking detonate. Mush Morton and the Wahoo have just had their first run-in with the infamous Mark 14 torpedo, which in early World War II absolutely fucking sucked. They were going off too early. They weren't going off at all. They were a pile of shit. Mush Morton gives the command. They dive as fast as possible to 100 feet, and the freighter drives right over the top of them and keeps going, trying to get away, traveling at like 3 knots.
I miss you, Mama. Speed, Ricky Bobby's back. What are those things?
The Wahoo resurfaces, but the batteries are drained. They're not going to be able to catch this freighter, so the Wahoo turns its attention to the crippled Boyu Maru, the huge transport, fires 2 more torpedoes. Another one's a dud. The other one detonates right below the smokestack, breaking the entire back of the ship. This ship is full of Japanese soldiers, sailors, and Indian POWs, and they all start diving off this ship as it rapidly starts sinking. From here, the USS Wahoo's on the surface. They've got the generators running, trying to recharge the batteries. They're going to chase down this freighter later, and Mush Morton makes the most controversial decision of his entire career. The crew of the Boyu Maru manages to get about 20 life rafts out and floating on the water, and Mush Morton, realizing that his standing orders are unrestricted submarine warfare, makes the decision that he's going to go out and take out all of those life rafts. They are in enemy territory. These guys are going to get picked up by another ship. They're going to get taken into Guadalcanal, and all these Japanese soldiers are going to be used to kill American Marines, and Mush Morton's not about to let that shit happen. So he pulls up next to all these life rafts and has his crew get up on the deck with a bunch of Tommy guns. Now, are you allowed to shoot at the crew of a downed ship? No, you're not. That's a war crime. However,
you are allowed to shoot at their equipment, i.e., poke a bunch of holes in the rafts that are keeping them afloat so they will sink. I think that's where they're going. Yeah, just, feed the sharks.
Are allowed to shoot at the life rafts that they're inside of. And that is exactly what the crew of the USS Wahoo does. They open fire on these life rafts, trying to pop them, dismantle them, and that way these guys are going to be lost at sea. But the people on the life rafts start returning fire, at which point they're now enemy combatants and they're fair game too. Now, the extremely unfortunate side of this is that on that ship there were British Indian prisoners of war as well, and they are caught up in the crossfire. Now, we don't know exactly what happened, but we do know in hindsight that the Boyu Maru had about 1,100 men on board, and during the entire engagement, from the torpedoes hitting, the explosions from that, the sinking of the ship, the elements, drowning, and the gunfire, approximately 282 people died, both Japanese soldiers and POWs. Japan would later use this incident as propaganda, as a justification, saying that America was all a bunch of violent war criminals and that we were not abiding by the rules of war. And because...
Yeah, fucking rich. Coming from World War II Japanese army. Fucking rich. That. Yeah. Says the people that are some of the worst war criminals in military fucking history. Go fuck yourselves. There's a reason why you got your asses handed to you.
Because of that, a lot of anti-war people would buy into the propaganda and also agree that Mush Morton was in fact a war criminal. Now, was this a war crime by today's standards? Maybe. Was it a war crime by World War II standards? Absolutely not. Not even fucking close. And you know what? Even if it was, guess what else is a war crime? Attacking Pearl Harbor, okay? Don't start none. There won't be none. Talk shit, get hit. Okay, and that absolutely sucks. I'm not trying to sugarcoat it. I'm not trying to be insensitive, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles, okay? And
the fact is, war is war. That is facts. The entire purpose of war is you are killing motherfuckers. Okay? War starts. Every fucking war begins with a literal war crime. That is how every war fucking starts to begin with. And in war, many people will die. That is what war is. You can talk about war crimes all you want. There is the argument to be made about humane treatment of prisoners, sure. But when you're talking about enemy combatants, war is fucking war. If you the ones that pussyfoot around and are worried about war crimes are worried like something could be considered a war crime, those are the people that lose. Those are the sides that lose a war. The ones that worry, oh, is this going to be perceived as a war crime, instead of taking down enemy combatants that are trying to kill you. The ones that go, fuck it, this is a bad guy, they're going away now. Those are the people that win fucking wars. Flat the fuck out.
In war, sometimes good men have...
War crimes only matter if your side loses.
Exactly. Exactly right. That's why why the Germans tried to categorize the trench gun as a war crime, because their people were getting absolutely fucking wrecked by 19-year-old alcoholic soldiers cleaning fucking house in the trenches by just running through with a fucking slam firing a goddamn trench gun and turning Germans into like borscht. And yes, I'm mixing my country metaphors here. Facts. War crimes are determined by the losers, not the winners.
I'm not trying to be insensitive, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles, okay?
Yeah, I'm not even going to get into that one.
Cool, men have to do bad things to bad men to keep those bad men from doing bad things to good people, and that's just fucking how it goes. War sucks. After the crew of the Wahoo finishes shooting at everybody that was shooting at them and destroying the life rafts, they've got enough energy in the batteries, they start chasing down this last ship. And by the time they catch up to it, another freighter has caught up to it, trying to help this one out, and now they have 2 targets again. Problem, the USS Wahoo only has 4 torpedoes left, so they line up the shots, they fire 2 at one freighter, 2 at another.
Oh God,
end up
are they
gonna
work?
And sinking both of them. At this point, the USS Wahoo is out of torpedoes. They are out of ammunition only 23 days into this war patrol, when the average war patrol lasts like 70 days. So they're out here kicking ass. They have no other option but to head back towards Pearl Harbor. On their way there, they run across another Japanese convoy with no escort.
What is that?
Now you gotta realize at this point, this is the most successful war patrol in American history, all right? They went out, they sank 5 ships in 23 days, and they're out of ammo. Might as well put a cherry on top, right? So he comes up with a plan. They're gonna rush into this convoy, force them to scatter. He's gonna pick off the slowest one, and they're just gonna track it down and fire the 5-inch deck guns at it till they sink that one too, trying to make their total 6 ships in 1 war patrol. And the plan starts to work. They go in, convoy breaks up just like Mush Morton thought it would. He picks off the slowest one, starts chasing them down, firing the 5-inch guns. He's going to sink this ship with the 5-inch guns. And then 10 minutes into firing with the 5-inch guns on this ship, a Japanese destroyer shows up, and they have no way of fighting a Japanese destroyer at this point, so they are forced to submerge and run. So they head back to Pearl. They sail into the harbor on February 7th, 1943, with a gigantic broom on top of the ship near the flag, symbolizing a clean sweep. They had sunk, or they believe they had sunk, every Japanese ship that they came across. Okay, this is huge. This is unprecedented. At this point in time, 1943, it's early in the war. America in the Pacific has just taken L after L, ass whooping after ass whooping. There's been no good news coming out of the Pacific. And then here comes the USS Wahoo sailing in, symbolizing a clean sweep with the most successful submarine war patrol of all time. Despite the fact that the submarines are literally called the Silent Service and we don't usually talk about them, they are basically forced to push this out as headline news for propaganda purposes to show that the Americans are doing something on the Pacific front. And because of this, Mush, Morton, and the USS Wahoo become famous almost overnight. Mush, Morton, and the crew are actually allowed to give interviews to the journalists and take pictures of the USS Wahoo, which is absolutely unprecedented for submarines at this point in time or in general. On top of that, Mush, Morton gets awarded the U.S. Navy Cross and the Army Distinguished Service Cross, both of which are the second highest award in each branch, seconded only to the Medal of Honor. And the USS Wahoo receives a Presidential Unit Citation.
Damn.
From here, the crew gets a little bit of R&R. They get the ship refitted, reloaded, and they are back out on the sea on February 23rd, ready to kick ass. And Mush Morton now, he feels vindicated. He knows that his tactics are working. That was the best submarine run they've ever had, and it came from him being hyper-aggressive, so he's going to get even more aggressive. From here, he designates commando squads, basically boarding parties, the dudes that are going to board enemy ships with guns and take shit over if it comes to that, with his tactic of being hyper-aggressive. Now, he never actually gets to use these commando squads, but A, it highlights how aggressive he's willing to be, and B, this also sets the groundwork and the framework for other commanding officers to do the same, like Eugene Lucky Flucky and the crew of the USS Barb, when their commando squad became the only Americans during World War II to set foot on mainland Japan when they placed an IED on train tracks and blew up a fucking train. Not only that, but Mush's mission is to sail into the Yellow Sea. He is going to be the first submarine commander to do this during World War II. The Yellow Sea is exceptionally dangerous because the average depth is only 120 feet, meaning that the submarine is not going to have much luck diving deep trying to avoid depth charges if it comes to that. But it is absolutely full of Japanese ships for that exact reason. So
this chat is what we like to refer to as a very target-rich environment. Plenty of ships. You're waiting. Bring it the fuck on.
So they make their way into the Yellow Sea, and on March 19th, 1943, they detect a freighter, and Mush Morton was given a couple of a new type of torpedo that's not loaded with TNT. It's loaded with something called Torpex that is apparently 50% more effective than TRT, and it's time to try one out. So they chase this freighter down, line up the shot, and Mush Morton orders firing only one.
Wait, hang on.
Time to try one out. So they
he said
Torpex that is apparently 50% more effective than TRT.
Okay, I'm blocking it, but he said TRT. He meant to say TNT. Likely 5,000% more effective than TRT.
And it's time to try one out. So they chase this freighter down, line up the shot, and Mush Morton orders firing only one torpedo, trying to conserve as much ammo as possible. One torpedo takes off, hits the target, detonates, sinks the ship in a matter of minutes. About an hour later, they pick up another ship on radar. They chase it down, they sneak up on it, they fire two torpedoes, not Torpex, just the regular TNT ones. One hits, detonates, blows a hole in the ship, but not enough to sink it. Second one hits, fucking dud again. These goddamn Mark 14 torpedoes are pissing Mush Morton off. They circle back around, they fire two more torpedoes, another dud, and the other one veers off course. At this point, they spot the USS Wahoo, start firing shells at it. They are forced to submerge and retreat. These torpedoes are becoming the bane of Mush Morton's existence. He just wants shit to work. Later that day, they spot another freighter, sneak up on it, fire three torpedoes, sink that one in a matter of minutes. minutes too. Then that night they spot another freighter, and this one is huge. It is 6,500 tons, the Nido Maru. They sneak up on it, fire torpedoes, sink it in 3 minutes flat. Later that night, they find another freighter filled with coal for the Japanese war effort, sneak up within 1,000 yards of it, fire a single TNT torpedo, blow that one up as well, bringing their total to guaranteed 4, potentially 5 ships in a single day. Very next morning, March 24th, they come up on another freighter. They fire 3 torpedoes. 2 of them are duds. 1 veers off course. They swing the sub around. Mush Morton's pissed. These torpedoes aren't working. Fires 2 more torpedoes from the after tubes. One of them hits, dud, and then by this point, the ship is already aware and they evade the 5th torpedo. By this point, the ship starts firing on the USS Wahoo. They are forced to dive and evade it. They track it for a little while. Then, once they think they're gone, they resurface, chase it back down again. They fire 3 more torpedoes. 1 of them is good, and it hits, and it blows up, breaks the back of this ship, sinks it in a matter of minutes. A couple hours later, they're in an area where their radar is being jammed, but they're just operating off a periscope and lookouts, and they end up spotting a Japanese ship off in the distance. They chase it down, fire 2 torpedoes. Both of them prematurely detonate. Now at this point, the USS Wahoo only has 2 torpedoes left, at which point Mush Morton doesn't want to waste them if he doesn't have to on this ship, so he kind of looks over at Dick O'Kane on the periscope and is like, hey Dick, did they got any guns on the deck of that ship? And Dick's like, not a single one, at which point Mush Morton's kind of like, Mush Morton orders them to surface the ship. They're gonna sink this motherfucker with the deck guns. They roll up and just start unloading on this ship with the 4-inch guns and the 20mm guns, punching this thing full of holes. It's dead in the water and burning. While this is going on, another Japanese freighter rolls up, and these guys have guns, so they think they're gonna fight back. They start shooting at the USS Wahoo. USS Wahoo starts shooting back with the 5-inch and 20mm guns and wrecks that ship too. Obviously, this is not as effective as a torpedo, but over the course of a couple hours, both of these freighters end up sinking. Next day, they come across
plat, 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 plat. Yes.
this little fishing ship, but this fishing ship has this comically large communications array on it. And they're like, that's a fucking scout. So they go, they engage, they open up on it with the deck guns. And at this point, they're so close, they're hammering this little ship, but this little fucking ship just will not sink. Mush Morton sends up the commando crews, but the ship is too rough for them to actually board it. So these guys run back down into the sub, they go into the galley, they grab a bunch of liquor bottles and make homemade Molotov cocktails and start throwing the Molotovs onto this fishing ship. This little ship was just taking so much fire, Mush Morton eventually decided, like, okay, I've wasted enough ammo on this thing. It's dead in the water. We've destroyed the communication array. We're just gonna move on. 3 days later, they come across two more little ships. They open up with gunfire. They spend over 500 rounds on these two little boats, and they just won't sink, but they're dead in the water and they're burning, so they move on again.
Okay. This has got to come back. How the hell are they not able to sink these little ships? They're like unloading with the fucking deck guns and they're not sinking. What the fuck are these things made of? This has got to come back into play somehow.
That night, they're almost out of ammo for the deck guns. They've only got 2 torpedoes left, and they're figuring, okay, we're probably just gonna head back to Pearl Harbor, get some more ammunition. And then at 3 o'clock in the morning, they pick up a freighter on the radar. They track it till dawn. That morning, they line up their shot.
Mad by Toyota.
I mean, that's not wrong. You may not be wrong there.
Fire their last 2 torpedoes and sink that ship too. From here, they make their way back to port. They signal to Pearl Harbor their tally that they have wrecked or sank 9 enemy vessels, to which Pearl Harbor replies, congratulations, the Japanese think that there is an entire wolf pack operating in the Yellow Sea. If you don't know, that means that the USS Wahoo just fucked up so many enemy ships that the Japanese think that there's an entire fleet of submarines operating in the Yellow Sea, not just Mush Morton and the USS Wahoo.
But you don't remember how many. Maybe one.
On their way there, they actually get orders they're not going to go to Pearl Harbor. They're just going to go to Midway, pick up more ammunition, and go back on their 5th war patrol. Once they get to Midway, do the full debrief. Morton ends up getting a 2nd Navy Cross for heroism, and Dick O'Kane ends up getting a Silver Star. But then, both of them get blindsided by one of their fellow officers, a guy by the name of McMillan. Now, this guy's been in submarines quite a bit longer. He's like 4 years older than Mush Morton. He's 8 years older than Dick O'Kane, and this guy's basically just butthurt that he's not running the show. So he tells Vice Admiral Charles Lockwood, oh, the missions were chaotic and they were poorly planned and things could have went better than they did, to which Mush Morton basically replies, The mission speaks for itself. It's literally the most successful war patrol of any submarine in World War II at this point. And the second...
Or in other words, motherfucker, are you out of your goddamn mind? We sank 9 fucking ships. We sank so many ships, the Japanese think there's an entire fucking wolf pack out there. The fuck are you talking about, gamer? Yeah, this is the definition of a pissy little butthurt bitch. And if I were Mush Morton, I'd be very tempted to go get the fuck off my boat.
Second most successful war patrol of any war patrol in all of World War II. They were only beaten later on by the USS Tang when it was under the command of Dick O'Kane. So Macmillan basically gets told to eat a dick and shut the fuck up. From here, Vice Admiral Charles Lockwood starts referring to Mush Morton as Mush the Magnificent, and then Mush Morton kind of starts pissing off a lot of other officers. One, he's getting a bunch of press coverage. Everybody's getting jealous. The spotlight's on him. The highest guy up in submarines, Lockwood, absolutely loves him. And then on top of it, Mush Morton writes a scathing letter about how ineffective these torpedoes are and how it needs to get fixed. And at this point in time, you got to realize the United States Naval Committee in charge of like the armament of ships basically has come out and said, no, there's nothing wrong with the Mark 14 torpedo. You guys just aren't good at using them, which is complete bullshit. Every submarine commander and any dude that used a torpedo in World War II acknowledges that they're a giant piece of shit. But now that this is coming from Mush Morton, the most successful submarine commander and one of the most famous war heroes of World War II, it starts making a lot of waves and pissing off a lot of high-ranking officers because now they're getting in trouble. Regardless, the Wahoo gets restocked, refitted, and sets off on its next war patrol on April 25th, 1943. This time they're getting sent up to the Aleutian Islands because apparently there's a huge Japanese fleet up there and they want the USS Wahoo to go distress the enemy.
It's better if nobody trades. You don't know anything. What are you talking about? I'll take care of it.
So they make their way up there. They identify a Japanese airstrip. Dick O'Kane, going full gung-ho, says we should start shelling this thing with the deck guns. But Mush Morton declines the offer because they're there to sink enemy ships, not announce their presence by firing shells onto an airfield. So they forego that idea. Fast forward to May 4th, they finally come across an enemy ship, and it is an auxiliary seaplane tender with a plane on top of it. Perfectly valid target. So they sneak up on it. Mush Morton gives the order. Anytime Dick fires 3 torpedoes. One of them hits, the other 2 hit, but they're duds. God damn. The ship's damaged, but not enough to sink it. They start firing rounds in every direction, throwing depth charges everywhere. They don't even know where the Wahoo is, and they start trying to make their getaway. At this point in time, it's broad daylight. If they want to be able to take this thing out, they're going to have to surface and engage it, and it's not worth the risk. This thing's going to be able to fight back too well, and they decide that they're just going to stay submerged and slip away and let this one go. And at this point, Mush Morton, Dick O'Kane, everybody involved is just absolutely furious with these dud torpedoes. So from here, they head south. The weather warms up a little bit, and suddenly there's enemy ships all over the place. From here, they pick 2 freighters that seemingly don't have any sizable escort. They sneak up on them. They realize that the smaller of the 2 freighters is armed, and it is the escort for the other freighter. Despite that, they decide they're going to attack anyways. They open up by firing 6 torpedoes, 3 at each ship. 1 torpedo out of the 6 ends up connecting and actually detonating like it's supposed to. Breaks the back of the regular freighter. It starts sinking, and the small escort freighter starts charging the USS Wahoo. Mush orders the emergency dive. They dive down, and the small escort drives right over the top of them, starts dropping depth charges, but they're too deep to actually affect the submarine. They make it out okay. At this point, the crew's starting to get discouraged. Mush Morton's getting pissed. He's got a reputation to uphold. Every time he fires a torpedo, 75% of the time, it's a dud. So at this point, Mush Morton greenlights the idea. They're going to take apart the torpedoes. They're going to throw out the magnetic detonator, and they're just going to set these things to detonate on impact. From here, Mush Morton gives the crew a speech. I'm paraphrasing, but he essentially says, that's it. We're done sneaking around. We're going to get right up close to these guys and punch them in the goddamn teeth with these torpedoes set to impact.
Daced. Fucking daced. He's like, we're done. It's time to start fucking shit up. No more playing games. The higher-ups in the Ordnance Command want to fuck around. They can keep fucking around. We ain't playing that game. We're playing a whole different kind of fucking game. Let's get back to basics and actually sink some fucking ships.
Now the crew's getting fired up. They think they fixed the torpedo issue. Captain's not giving up. They're not giving up either. Sure enough, the next morning they spot two ships, one big-ass oil tanker and a freighter. They go to engage. They fire 6 torpedoes, 3 at each. The 3 fired at the tanker all detonate, blow this thing up, sink it in like under a minute. Out of the other 3,
nice.
1 hits, 1 detonates, but it snaps a spine, and that one sinks too. Both ships sink before the crew members can get out to take a picture.
The main character energy is strong with this one.
They always are. They always are.
They've got all kinds of shit popping up on the radar now. There's apparently a bunch of Japanese ships in the area, so they dive down as deep as they can to 300 feet and just try to wait it out. Now they know the Wahoo's in the area and they're willing to fight about it, so Morton has to change up his tactics, be a little bit more conservative. He's going to stay submerged during the day. He's only going to operate above the waterline during the night. At this point, they're running out of torpedoes, but they're trying to make the best of it. Then about a week later, on May 12th, they come across 2 more Japanese ships. They go ahead, they line up their shot. Mush Morton gives the order. Anytime, Dick. They fire 4 torpedoes, 2 at each. First set of torpedoes both hit their target, but one of them's a dud. So that ship's injured. The second set fired at the other ship are both either misses or duds again. At this point, Mush Morton's pissed. He orders them to surface the ship. He's going to drive this torpedo right down this ship's throat. They line up their next shot above the ground. This is going to fix any depth issues, any targeting issues. They're going to fire this torpedo, sink this ship, and end this war patrol the right way. They fire the torpedo, direct hit. It's a fucking dud. Mush Morton orders the gun crews to go up. They're going to finish this ship off with the 4-inch guns and the 20 millimeters. As soon as they open the hatch, that other ship starts firing on the USS Wahoo, and Mush Morton makes the decision that that ship is not worth a single member of his crew. He orders them back in, and they dive down. At this point, all they can do is head back to port. That's exactly what they do. They sail into Pearl Harbor. They do not fly the broom this time. This was not a clean sweep. Mush Morton is absolutely pissed off with their performance, but Charles Lockwood, the commander, is actually pretty happy with it. By the metrics of all the other submarines that are going out right now, this is still a very successful war patrol, but Mush Morton's standards for him and his crew are just that much higher that he's not happy with it at all.
Well, I would argue it's not even so much that Mush Morton's standards are higher. It's like, yes, his standards are high, but also he's working with faulty equipment. He should have had God knows how many downed enemy ships that would not go down because of shit equipment. He probably was robbed of 5+ enemy kills because of these dog shit torpedoes. So I'm understandably pissed. It's not even so much a matter of higher standards. It's the fact that he shouldn't, like, he doesn't have functional equipment. He has tried to call this out, and nobody's fucking listening. I can think of no other I can think of fewer infuriating situations than to have completely broken equipment, and when you tell your command, this shit is broke, it doesn't work, fix it, and they go, oh no, it's just fine, we know better than you. And they're not the ones on the front fucking lines taking fire and doing work. That is the biggest kick in the teeth, is when you've got these pencil-pushing dickless wonders that are going, no, the Mark 14 torpedo works perfectly. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And they're sitting there safe and cozy in their offices, out of the war, not putting their lives on the line, and ignoring every single fucking commander that is saying your shit's broken. There can be few things that are more infuriating and more terrifying. Because leave us not forget, if you don't have functional weapons, that puts you and your crew in danger. And when weapons that malfunction or do not function properly causes ships to sink and lives to be lost. And the fact that they don't give a shit and just say, nope, these work perfectly, fucking kick him in the teeth. Then maybe they'll actually start fucking listening.
Despite that, Mush Morton is issued another Navy Cross, and Dick O'Kane is given another Silver Star. Dick O'Kane is also promoted, and he is going to go get a submarine of his own, and he is going to be the commander of the new submarine, the USS Tang. So Mush Morton gets his new XO. August 1943, the Wahoo sails into the Japanese Sea. Mush Morton wants to implement a new tactic. He wants to open up by firing only one torpedo at a time, as opposed to the standard volley of preferably 3, but at a minimum 2. He thinks that this is going to help him conserve ammo and sink more ships per war patrol. And the plan almost immediately proves to be a tremendous failure, not because necessarily it's a bad idea, but because the torpedoes fucking suck. Every time he fires a torpedo, it's either a miss or a dud, and he only fired one. After attempting to engage multiple ships and all the torpedoes being failures, he radios back to Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor tells him to come back. They end up offloading a bunch of the torpedoes for testing, and Charles Lockwood criticizes his technique, says you need to be firing at least 2, preferably 3 torpedoes, and then he loads the USS Wahoo with the new Mark 18 torpedo that's supposed to be more reliable. And with that, on September 9th, 1943, they take back off into the Sea of Japan, straight into the heart of enemy-held territory on an extremely dangerous mission. We don't know exactly what happened, but by October 5th, 1943, they would signal to Pearl that they had sank 3 ships in the La Perouse Strait. The La Perouse Strait at this time is an extremely dangerous area, heavily fortified by the Japanese, connecting the Japanese Sea to the Sea of Okhotsk. And unfortunately, that transmission on October 5th was the last transmission that the USS Wahoo ever sent. The USS Wahoo was supposed to send another check-in transmission on October 26th, but it never came. With that, Charles Lockwood dispatched planes and ships to check return routes, hoping to find the USS Wahoo disabled but still floating. But they never did. On November 9th, Admiral Lockwood was forced to make the announcement that Wahoo was a month late to its report time and presumed to be lost at sea with all hands. The USS Wahoo remained lost at sea until its wreckage was discovered in 2006. After examining the wreckage and comparing it to Japanese...
Fuck. Guys, seriously, please, not when we're hearing heartbreaking stuff like this, okay?
Presumed to be lost at sea with all hands. The USS Wahoo remained lost at sea until its wreckage was discovered in 2006. After examining the wreckage and comparing it to Japanese reports from that point in the war, it was determined that the USS Wahoo had sustained some type of mechanical failure or damage before the battle had actually begun, and it was leaking oil, and a Japanese plane managed to spot the oil leak, leading it directly to the silhouette of the submarine under the water. It took 60 depth charges and 40 bombs to sink the USS Wahoo and send it on its eternal patrol. Vice Admiral Lockwood blamed himself. He later wrote that he didn't think the Japanese were smart enough to catch Mush Morton and the USS Wahoo. Both Lockwood and Dick O'Kane spent the rest of their careers advocating that Mush Morton should be posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor. Unfortunately, due to the partially successful propaganda painting him as a war criminal, as well as him pissing off a bunch of high-ranking officers over his dissatisfaction with the torpedoes, that would never come to fruition. Dick O'Kane would go on to become the most successful submarine commander in U.S. history and the only man to outperform Mush Morton in a single war patrol. And he credited much of that success to everything he had learned under the command of Mush Morton, the man and the crew that rewrote the book on submarine warfare. Thank you for watching. Best way to support the channel is go buy some merch over at thefatelectrician.com. Quack bang out. It's okay. American submariners don't die. They just stay on patrol. I'm not crying. This office is infected with onion cutting ninjas.
Damn it. Oh, God.
Fair winds and following seas Wahoo.
He deserved that Medal of Honor. He fucking deserved it. That ain't fucking military politics. Bullshit. Yeah. Fuck. Well, we know. We know he deserved it. Okay? We know, and because of people like Nick, we know about him. And his story remains. And his heroism remains. And that's what counts. That that he still remembered, and that his story is still told, his deeds are known, his heroism is known. And people like Nick make sure, and people like us know what a fucking badass he was. And we will continue to remember him.